And I want to look at the future, in particular, your own future as a country, but also our personal futures. I often say this: either we take hold of our future, or the future takes hold of us. Either we make our own history happen, or we are just victims of it. And I believe this is a really exciting time for this country. But before I start, let me say something. In my first training, I am a physician of medicine, and I'm worried about a medical condition in some of you in my audience. There is a particular condition called torticollis. It's where your head is fixed. You can't move it because it's been in a strange angle watching speakers on a platform. And you have to go to hospital, and the doctor has to go like this. So can I suggest that you turn around your chairs so that you can see, because so much is going to happen. In 20 seconds, you will miss it. Okay, so let us start, if you are ready, with a journey into the future. Now I confess something to you. I don't necessarily believe everything I'm going to say. My purpose is to provoke us to think. For every organization here, your greatest risk is institutional blindness. It's that in HSBC, maybe someone from HSBC was born inside the bank. They have always worked inside the bank, and they have an HSBC view. I can have a British view. I can have a view of a 50-year-old man. I can have a view of a technology person. I can have a view of a physician. What I'm asking is that we try to remove the glasses that we wear for a moment, for 45 minutes, to see if we can see our world in a new way. I want to divide the future into 6 pieces. They spell the word future F-U-T-U-R-E, and the first is the speed of change. And we are living in an increasingly impatient world. And the issue is, who wants to wait? Already in Panama, if your web page takes more than 30 seconds to load up, you have lost 30% of your business. That is history. You tell me tomorrow. In a hotel like this fantastic, wonderful hotel, this is one of the most dramatic ballrooms I have ever been in my whole life. I'm just so sorry that we have closed some of the windows so you can see the screen, because the view is amazing. But in a hotel like this, sometimes you wait for a lift. Can I ask a question? Put your hands up if sometimes, like me, you press the button more than once. Okay, most of us. Why? I mean, it's crazy. We know that Microsoft Windows XP cannot make the lift go faster. But still we press it. Why? Because in a crazy, fast world, we act irrationally. We act emotionally. And the future is about emotion. And the future is a YouTube world where up to 400 million videos a day get downloaded by individuals of little clips of people like you and me. And parts of this meeting will be on YouTube maybe by tomorrow morning. And maybe some of you will see it. This is a world where everything is joined up all the time, where a comment about your product can be created on a camera and be on a website, praising you or destroying you at the speed of light. The future is about emotion. The future is about reactions to events rather than events themselves. That is the lesson of history. When you look at the reactions to terrorist attacks. Very few die, but the emotional reaction is huge. When you look at the reaction to the SARS epidemic, and more recently, the worries about bird flu, again, we see emotion. That's why we don't believe market research. Market research can't tell you the future. Market research simply tells us what your customers thought yesterday about the future, and they keep changing their mind. I want to show you a video which is an example of this problem. This video was shown in my country. It is a TV advertisement, and it scored 100% for market research. But the moment they showed it, there was a massive reaction, and it is now against the law almost for me to show it in my country. I thought you would like to see it and maybe tell me why it was banned. My friends. Okay, so you thought it was funny. So what is wrong with the British sense of humor? That's what I want to know. Why was this video banned? What do you think? Any idea? He doesn't know, he's on the phone. You know, the people reacted for all kinds of reasons, but one of them was because the video is true. It contains a truth about life, which is that life is fast and it feels like it's speeding up. And this links to the second phase of the future, which is about life itself. This is about demographics, lifestyle, fashions and fads, urbanization. And the fact that there are 1 billion children in the world today, all of them will become adults in the next 15 years. The greatest market explosion that we have ever seen. At the same time, we see in the Europe that Europe itself is dying. We need 4 couples to produce a great-grandchild, one great-grandchild. Can you reduce the volume on my microphone, please? On this main microphone. Thank you. You need 4 couples to produce 1 great-grandchild, which is huge, a huge issue in the European Union. Here is another one. In the United States, 75% of all wealth in America is owned by those over the age of 65. But 65% of those over the age of 65 are women. Therefore, old women own most of America. And an increasing number of those who have come here to retire, you have already seen what happens. They come as a couple, the guy goes out in a coffin quite quickly, and the woman is left. So you are seeing huge amounts of wealth accumulating amongst senior citizens, many of whom are bored of life in Florida, and they are coming here. And senior citizens, older people, are a massive new market for this country. But they expect different things. I mentioned that it is possible to have an institutional blindness, to be so caught in our own world that we fail to understand what is happening. Let me give you a very small example from this aging issue. I'm sure most of you have been to a restaurant in the last few weeks. Put your hands up if you needed your glasses to read the menu. Put your hands up. Okay, I want to see. Most of you. You see, I am 50 years old. I need reading glasses. Now, that's interesting. Most of the people in Panama with the money to go out to eat are over the age of 50. And most of the menus cannot be read by anyone under the age of 40. Strange. It's just a very small example of how much our society needs to think again about serving this older community, this older wealthy community which could be drawn to this country in huge, huge numbers. Here is another example. Countries like India and Thailand and Dubai, UAE, are starting to generate massive revenues through medical tourism. People come for an operation for 3 days and they take a 3-week vacation for less than the cost, less than maybe 60% of the cost of having it done in America or France or the UK. This is a massive new area. It's a potential one. It's just one of many, many new exciting opportunities that presents itself for you. By the way, I have a question. Can we stop the tick-tock of your biological clock? Perhaps we can. Perhaps you already know that you share the same language of life that every animal and creature has. Did you know that your genes, your genetic code, is 86% the same as an insect? Yours, sir, is 99.5% the same as a monkey. Mine is 75% the same as a strawberry. Amazing. So I can take some genes from this strawberry. I can build them into my body, and those genes will work. I can take your genes and put them into some vegetables, and they will work. I can take genes from a horse and put them into a rabbit, and they work. This is a miracle of life. You see, the whole of the language of life is written in the same computer language, Microsoft Basic. So we can take spider genes and put them into a goat, and we get a new kind of material in the milk of the goat. We had salmon just now. Did you know that we can take your genes and put them into salmon fish, and the fish grow to 4 times their normal size in just 12 months? Maybe you don't want to do that. But if you have a heart attack in the next week, we already have the technology to remove cells from your bone and put them into your heart here. And as those cells from your bone go into this part of the heart starts to recover again. Your cells can be used, your own cells can be used to repair your spine in your back and probably your brain in the future. We are already doing these things in animals. There is already a drug which does this. It converts some wrinkles into normal skin. What would you give me for that? It's made by a company called Ultiom. Don't buy the shares because the drug doesn't work. It works in mice and rats. You take it for 4 weeks and all the wrinkles disappear. And you also get new arteries which are elastic so your blood pressure falls and you need no more medicine for the rest of your life. In mice and rats, it's perfect. In humans, it only works a little on the heart. But my friends, we are entering a strange world. Did you know that some animals don't get old at all? Some humpback whales don't get old. We cannot find any sign of them getting old in any way. Some of these whales die in 20 years, most of them. But others die in 200 years. It's the same with rockfish. We see the same water, the same sea, the same food, the same environment, but different genetic code. There must be some gene trick inside these whales and these fish. Now, if we could find the same gene trick in the turtle, in the parrot, perhaps we can start to find a way to slow down the aging process in a human being. I don't know. I'm just saying we are in for a strange time. Fast, urban, tribal. Tribalism is the most powerful force in the whole world. It is when one group says we are us and the other group says we are them. It is when it is the basis of conflict, but also community. It creates belonging, neighborhood, team, but also tension. And in countries where there is a big contrast, a growing gap between the very wealthy and the very poor, we can expect tension in future. And also between nations as well. Watch out for this issue. It is going to be very significant. But tribalism is the most powerful positive force. Tribalism gives us family and culture. It gives us language and music. It gives us teams, brands. Every brand is a tribe. Every successful organization is a tribe. The stronger your tribe, the stronger your organization will be. And most of the growth of the economy in this country will come from tribes, very small tribes, family-owned businesses, which are 70-80% of all the businesses in this country. And these businesses with only maybe 5 employees, they take on one more, it's 20% growth. 20 employees, they take on 2 more, 10% growth. We are seeing worldwide in emerging economies, it's these kinds of companies which are powering growth. At the same time, most of the attention of government tends to be on the multinationals. So it's a strange paradox. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. Universal is about globalization and the biggest good news story for this wonderful country. And that is this. I guess, as I'm here, I am reminded so much of UAE or Dubai. I'm reminded of free trade zones and yours. I'm reminded of engine for growth. I'm reminded of the power that comes from a huge container port. I'm reminded of what happens when you become an oasis of stability in the eyes of investors, with strong financial resources and a community that's based on services. I think it's fascinating what is happening here, and there's a tremendous engine of growth for the future. And then, of course, there's the Great Canal. What do we think about the future of shipping? Most people are shocked when I tell them that it costs more to drive a lorry 150 kilometers along this road here than it does to take the same container from China all the way to London. It's amazing. It costs almost zero to move containers on water around the world. So huge is this gap that in Italy it costs more to move watermelons 150 kilometers on the road from a village to the city. It costs more than to move them by ship from Turkey to Naples, even when you include the cost of loading them on the ship and taking them off. So what it means is that we will continue to see massive growth in the movement of containers and massive growth in the number of ports where containers can be offloaded. In my country, we used to have just 2 or 3 or 4 big ports. But now they want to have ports like the post office. They deliver 2 containers here, they go 20 miles. 2 containers off here, go 50 miles. 3 containers off here, because it costs nothing to do it, compared to taking them off one big container, one big port, one big ship, and then distributing them on hundreds of lorries around my country. So it's an exciting time if you are in the sailing business and you are in the heart of it. It's also an exciting time for you in the middle of free trade zones. And I know there's great discussion about extending this principle. Very few countries have free trade zones, and almost everyone that has one has seen a massive concentration of investment into it. Of course, there is always a debate about how much the government should get or not get, about whether it really benefits the whole country. But places like Dubai have discovered that there is a wider benefit outside the free trade zone from employment, accumulation of skills, investment in real estate, leisure, and all the rest of infrastructure and development, which has come around those free trade areas. So I'm sure that you will find this continues to be a great engine for growth, and not only for you, but for the region as a whole. And with it, you are beginning to see, as we know, more and more companies begin to see that Panama is the place to base a big regional hub. And I think that that could increase as the rest of the infrastructure comes into place. But watch out. In this globalized, rapidly changing world, there is lots of room for uncertainty, for low probability, but potentially high impact risks that come crashing into strategy. And change will have to force changes in government policy even. What are we talking about? We're talking about any one of 300 or 400 things that could happen inside any one of your businesses, each of which may only have a 1% risk or less per year of actually happening. But if any of them does, it has a significant effect. And if there are 300 of these inside your business, potentially, with a 1% risk per year, then on average you will see 1, 2, or 3 each year happen to you. What that means is we need to have a flexible strategy that is ready to adapt to change, that can seize opportunities in these wild cards. These wild cards are positive things as well as negative. They are things which happen, which open up a massive new opportunity for companies that think fast, that have finance in place, that have skilled teams, and can make things happen. Inside countries like India and China as a whole, all kinds of things can happen, which could set off other issues throughout our interconnected world. Now, one of the things which will be key to the future of this country will be the development of highly effective telecom and virtual teams, so that you are able to exploit your global position, running teams from here that actually control things in Argentina, in Nicaragua, in Mexico, and the rest. And part of that will be developing executive skills in training programs and the rest in business schools here to use these tools for virtual working. Put your hands up if you have done a video conference in the last year. Put your hands up. Put your hands up if you enjoyed it and are looking forward to doing it again soon. So what we see is the tools are here, but the future is not about technology, as I say, it's about emotion. And what we're talking about is finding ways to use these tools in a way that helps us emotionally to manage, to communicate effectively, and to reduce our travel. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. Radical. Radical is about single issues. It's about shifts in politics, and that affects us. Why? Because the olden days was left and right. The olden days was tradition, history, and a fixed world view. But those days are gone. Instead, we have single issues with narrow agendas, campaigns, radical, and sometimes quite irrational. And the lesson of history, as every government knows, is that whatever the government manifesto is before election, and the fact is that many things get driven by single issues attached to events, campaigns, pressure, and every single issue tends to become a regulation. And it doesn't matter whether it's protecting the rainforest, money laundering, child labor, or whatever you think the issue is today. Now, just one of those issues is ecotourism, and that brings me onto the question of tourism itself. And here, again, we can see some very exciting trends for you, because the European traveler is getting bored. The European traveler has already done the whole of Western Europe, Eastern Europe, America, Australia, New Zealand, and they've been to China and India. They don't want to go to Cambodia or Vietnam, and actually they are now thinking about Latin America. And we're seeing this happen in Rio, one of the most spectacular cities in the world. We're seeing it happen here, another of the most spectacular cities in the world. We're seeing the discovery of hidden jewels for the tourists of tomorrow. And if you look at this graph here is long-haul travelers, and you'll see, this is the graph of air travel, numbers of air travel trips in a year, and we're heading for 1.6 billion travelers by 2020, of which 25% will be long-haul, which is good news for you, since almost everyone who comes here is arriving on a relatively long-haul flight as tourists. But look at this. The yellow here is the East Asia and the Pacific. This is really China. The dark green here is the Americas. And a lot of this growth is south of here. So we are seeing lots and lots of potential for new revenues for people who will come, many of whom will buy property. They'll stay here, they will be regular visitors, or they will land up retiring here. Now, at the same time, we can expect further questions about the environmental impact of oil tourism, related to the biggest single issue, perhaps, of our lifetime, which is global warming. Now, remember I said the future is not about science, it's about emotion. Therefore, I'm not interested in whether you agree with this graph. The science is irrelevant. Yes, it's important for the future of the Earth. But if you're asking me about the future of Panama business in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd say the science is irrelevant. Whether we're right or wrong, the impact of global warming will happen way into the future. But the impact on your business will happen right now, and will happen increasingly every year, even if the science is totally wrong. Why? Because if most people in the world feel very emotional about this graph of carbon dioxide, then it will drive change in your business, whatever the science actually is right or not. Does that make sense? I happen to think the scientific evidence linking climate change to man-made activity is overwhelmingly strong. I may be wrong. I happen to think that we are absolutely right to take this really seriously now. I may be wrong, but most people in the world are becoming very passionate about it. And it will affect every single thing that you do. It will even affect the reglazing of this building. Why? Because it's only got single glazed glass in it right now, and that already looks last century. And it could be the same in my country as well. You will not believe the number of areas of your life that will be touched by these changes. Every single company, whether you're a telecom company looking at lower powered cellular transmissions, or whether you are a road haulage company looking at biodiesel, which then affects the farm prices and land prices and fuel and food prices, it affects everything. And you're going to hear a lot about carbon sequestration and a lot about rainforests, a lot of foolish things about planting trees. Let me say this. You cannot solve this problem through planting trees. Why? The tree takes 100 years to get old, and after it has got old, what happens on the 101st year? It falls over, it dies. How many years is it before every molecule of carbon from that tree has been eaten by fungi, yeasts, bacteria, and released back into the air? So while trees are extremely important for biosystems, planting a few million of them cannot solve the ancient problem of carbon. If we're taking billions of tons of old carbon out of the ground and burning it, then eventually we have to find a way to take those billions of tons of carbon out of the air and put it back. We plant trees as well, but it can't solve the problem on its own. Fast, urban, tribal, universal, radical. How do we live in this crazy world? The answer is that we will see increasing attention on ethics and values, and it's already happening. It's about connecting with the passions that people have to build a better world. It's about what makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. It's about what's really important to you. And it's these kinds of things that help us to win the war for talent. While publicly listed companies talk about growth, profits, and shareholder value, the fact is that most people aren't interested in those things. Let me ask, who here gets out of bed in the morning and says, "Thank God I'm alive today. Let's go and make more shareholder value and bottom line profit"? Put your hands up if you are one of these people. One or two maybe. I am trying to write a book. It's called The Story of People Who Live to Make Profit. I've had one nomination. I wanted to write a story of 20 people who are so excited, this is all they live for, is to make their Excel spreadsheet numbers. I cannot find more than one or two people to be nominated for this book. Why? Because worldwide, it seems that passion is somewhere else. It seems that most people inside your organizations really couldn't care less about return on equity. They are really not interested in bottom line profit. They are interested in what they get paid. They are interested in a challenge. They are interested in working for a wonderful team which stimulates them and respects them. They want to make a difference, but not necessarily to just increase your market cap. And if we look at what people are really passionate about, we see this. We see that they are passionate about their own needs, yes, but also about their families and their friends. Put your hands up if you have had a conversation with someone about a work-life balance and getting a better balance in your life in the last year. Put your hands up. It's an almost universal thing. This passion, not just for ourselves, not just for return on equity, but for our relationships. And then there's a passion for something else. There's a passion for the communities in which we live. In almost every nation, in every city where I have lectured, I have found that the great majority of people give time to something for nothing. They don't do it because they are forced to, they aren't paid to, they just do it. And maybe they give time to their local school. Maybe they do the accounts of an AIDS orphanage in Zimbabwe. Maybe they help out in their church, whatever it is. But they give time. Why? Because they are interested in community. And then there are concerns for the wider world, and which again we find far more widely than you might imagine. Put your hands up if you had a passionate conversation about the war in Iraq and American foreign policy in the last year. Now, most of us don't know anyone in Iraq, so it is none of our business, but we feel involved. So we discover then that in the people who work with you, in your customers, in your own community, you find passion. Passion, yes, for the soul, but passion for family and friends, passion for community and for neighborhood, for our nation, and passion for our wider world. And when we touch all of these passions, then we find greatness in leadership and in corporate life. So how do you see the future? These 6 phases. They spell the word future. They are the future of Panama. A fast world, a world so fast changing that we need more than one strategy. We need to have plans and contingencies. A world which is impatient for change, that expects absolute precision all the time, everywhere, 24 hours a day. A world with huge demographic challenges, which are opportunities for you as well as pressures. Whether it's a shortage of labor, which will mean having to import it, or whether it's providing labor for other countries who are short of it, who are coming to you for their retirement packages. Whether it's the tribal world, where we feel sometimes our world can fall to bits. Whether it's our universal world, that sometimes we feel we're losing our identity. Whether it's a radical world with new kinds of forces, some of which are religious, or whether it's the ethical world which holds it all together. And there are 2 ways you can see this cube as it turns. One is the traditional world of your business. It's a fast-changing technology, demographics, and globalization. Fast, urban, universal. Or there is the other view. And the other view, my friends, is a world that's very tribal, very tightened together, small group, very radical in thinking, and very ethically motivated. And even Al-Qaeda has ethics. You may not agree with them, you may not agree with their ethics, but they have them. And the lesson is this. This cube is weighted. Most of the time in your business of telecom, it will come up fast, urban, universal. But every now and then, in your business in real estate, it might spin and come up with something rather different. Something tribal, radical, and ethical. So while the cube is weighted and you have your own dominant phases in your family life, in your business life, and they will change according to the situation, nevertheless, we need to keep that whole cube in view, because within it is the rest of the future. Thank you very much.